As many of you who've watched the channel know, I've been very involved for the past several months with large language models in an industrial professional environment, and trying to program and prompt them in an environment like that has taught me that while they are great creators, they are absolutely horrible workers. But I believe the solution to this problem is fairly obvious and hopefully will take place within the next year or two. So let's take a look. Hey y'all, it's Dr. Know-It-All. Like I said, I have been working since June, so about 5 months now, on a project that involves large language models being used in a professional environment. And while I can't talk about that yet, hopefully January or February of next year, I'll be able to talk about that. So make sure that you're subscribed so that you can see that episode when it comes out. I think it will be very interesting for folks who have not been able to follow along very well because I've just hinted at what I've been doing, but hopefully it will be public within the next couple of months, and then I'll be able to talk about it. So what I'm going to do today is actually talk about an analogous problem to what I'm working on right now that actually has to do with the things I teach about and the stuff that I work on as well. So it's actually a space I know quite well, and so I think I can talk reasonably about this. So I'm going to start off with an idea here to give us a sort of concrete example of what to start with. So let's say that you're thinking about a special effects sequence that's like 10 seconds long, 15 seconds long, something like that. Just a short video sequence where you want some big asteroid to come crashing down onto the Earth. So you're like, cool, I think I can do this rather than spending a whole bunch of money to have a special effects artist or a team of them work on something like this and take a couple of weeks to do a project like this. Why not just have something like Runway or Kling or even Sora, hypothetically, assuming we ever get access to Sora, but to have an AI-based video generator just do that for you. So let's say you go to Kling or you go to Runway and you type in your prompt and everything like that. You hit return, you go and you wait for a while, and it's actually longer than you might think, but you wait for a while and you get back a result and you see a big flaming, ball of rock come flying down, and it hits the Earth and it blows up and it creates a really, really spectacular explosion. And you're like, wow, that was pretty darn good. Okay, well and good, you've created an effect, you saved a whole bunch of time and money, right? Everything seems great for that. But let's say that you're creating Armageddon 2, The Search for More Cash or something like that. So you're making some big budget movie or something along those lines that's going to actually be released in theaters or go straight streaming to Netflix or something along those lines. So let's say that instead of just asteroid hits Earth, it needs to be large asteroid that you define the size of. So let's say it's an asteroid fragment the size of an ocean liner that needs to come flying down into New York City, between the buildings and everything like that. And you need a shot of it coming down, flaming. It hits the ground, it explodes, it knocks over several buildings. You see cars and things like that flying towards you, and you need a woman running towards you, screaming and running away from the explosion or something along those lines. So this is where things get interesting, because here you've got very, very tight restrictions on this shot, and it needs to fit in, of course, with the rest of your movie and things like that as well. So you've got a whole bunch of restrictions on exactly how this shot needs to look for the story and for the continuity with the rest of the movie. So now you talk to Runway or you talk to Kling or you talk to Sora or whatever, and you say, this is what I want. And so it produces the effect, but it produces the wrong angle, or it's not the right kind of buildings, it's not the right kind of day, doesn't have a person in front of it. Now what do? Well, you go back and you're like, wait, I can prompt my way out of this. So you create a more complex prompt and you go back and you iterate with this thing. And by the way, these things are not that fast. I actually was going to do something for my technical animation class, which is a special effects type class this semester, and I spent quite a while using Kling, and I walked away incredibly frustrated with it and decided not to even show it to my students this semester because it was so slow and so untrainable that I couldn't even get it to do what I wanted at all. I was trying to replicate one of the effects that we did in class of actually a water tower falling and splashing water all over the place. But the work that I was getting out of Kling, while it was, realistic enough looking for an amateur, was not at all what I wanted. I couldn't get the right angle on it. I couldn't get the right water effects, couldn't get the right foam. And of course, that was just for a class project. If you're trying to do a $100 million, $200 million movie, and you need this as one of your big budget special effects, you are going to spend more time prompting on this thing. Believe me, I've been working on this thing for months. The project that I'm working on, I've been working on it for months, and you build these gigantic prompts with all sorts of logic in them and all sorts of cross references. And what happens is you get this sort of non-linear effect. In other words, you add one little thing that you don't think will change a lot, but it changes the whole effect of what you're trying to do. So instead of the asteroid hitting New York City, all of a sudden it's in Philadelphia for some reason. You're like, what the hell? Or, instead of it being the afternoon at 4 o'clock in the the afternoon on a June afternoon. It's like, 2 o'clock in the afternoon in December. And so everything looks all wrong. And so with my work, the team's calling me the prompt whisperer right now. You're trying to create this prompt and it has so many layers to it that if you add something, you get these nonlinear effects. You get these nonlinear interdependencies. You get some of the changes that you want, but you then get interdependent changes that happen in other places in the prompt that you didn't expect, that causes the prompt to go haywire and causes the effect that you're going for not to work at all. If you're like me and misinformation, I bet you feel there aren't enough hours in the day to get everything done we need to. And while it's tough to find time to cook, we all want to eat healthy, delicious meals. What we've discovered is that Factor is the perfect solution for us. With Factor, today's sponsor, forget that last-minute trip to the grocery store, the prepping and the cleanup, while still getting the flavor and nutritional quality you need. Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are ready in just 2 minutes, so all you have to do is heat and enjoy. And let me tell you, these are great meals. High quality ingredients, chef prepared to be delicious. Whether you've got special dietary needs, want to go low calorie, or even eat protein plus meals with 30 grams of protein or more, you can find delicious foods to fit you and your family's needs, shipped right to your door and ready to eat in 2 minutes. I also really like that Factor offsets 100% of its delivery emissions and uses 100% renewable energy for production, so you can feel good about your food. Factor has amazing cold pressed juices too, with all natural ingredients like apples, ginger, pineapple, and so much more. They're delicious and so nutritious, and I love them. And you can even level up your dining game with Gourmet Plus options prepared to perfection by chefs and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Treat yourself to premium ingredients like leeks, truffle butter, and asparagus. So be sure to head to factor75.com or click the link below and use my code 50DrKnowItAll to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first Factor box. Thanks to Factor for sponsoring today's video, and thank you for watching. Be sure to go to factor75.com and use my code 50DrKnowItAll to save 50% on your first box. And now let's get back to it. And so what can happen is you can actually drift further and further away from the effect that you're trying to create rather than getting closer and closer to it. So in the end, what you do is you spend a ton of time and effort to get an effect that it's subpar. It just doesn't work as well as having a human being or a team of human beings that know what they're doing actually do the effect. So the important difference I'm talking about is between being an amateur and just wanting to get something, in which case generative AI is great. And it's great for writing and things like that. You just need an email created quickly, or you wanted to write a short story, something along those lines, and you don't really care that much. You're not a professional writer. You just want it to produce something, and you're like, yeah, that's a cool result, and I really, really like it. It made a bedtime story for my niece or something along those lines. You're happy with that. But if you're a professional in an industry right now, my prediction is that people will probably leave comments in here, whatever industry you're a professional in, and that industry really cares about the results. I have a feeling that people have been using generative AI in various businesses and have been discovering that it's not as effective as they want. I would take something like customer service, for example. Can you get this thing to follow a script exactly? Can you have it be perfect, not just for the generic case, but for all the edge cases where somebody calls up and I don't know, maybe it's an auto insurance company and they're like, hey, I'm stuck in a tree or something, right? You get these weird, bizarre situations. Can the AI actually handle this without passing it off to a human being? All of those edge cases, all of those weird interdependencies of the way the prompts work and the way the sort of black box of the neural network works makes it really, really difficult to get exactly what you want out of it if you know exactly what you want. If you don't know exactly what you want, if you just want something good enough, then these Gen AI solutions are amazing. If you're a professional, though, in whatever industry it is, and you really, really want exact solutions, you are going to have a hard time with generative AI. So let's break this problem down and figure out where the problem is actually arising from. So if you think about how a large language model, and I'll just use this as for generative AI in general, right? That could be a diffusion model that does pictures or videos or whatever, but one of these kind of generative AI solutions, and I'll probably just say large language model just because it's simpler to keep saying that. But when you're training a large language model or generative AI, you throw a whole bunch of data at it, a whole bunch of language or images or whatnot, and you let it train on that so that it understands the generality. It understands the sort of generic case. It says, okay, I understand understand what the universe of words, of English words, or of pictures of asteroids coming down, or things like that. It understands that universe in a general sense, but the problem is it's generic. It just knows it in a general sense. There is no way for this generative AI, large language model, diffusion model, whatever, to learn how to do a specific task that is necessary. And that's what the prompt is used for. Basically, the prompt is, hey, I want you to do this specific thing, but you're only generically trained. And so I want you to do this, but you know how to do this. So I'm basically saying, take your generic knowledge and apply this prompt to it and figure out how to make the best possible solution that you understand how to do. And, the large language models are not understanding, obviously, but, you're throwing something at them and saying, do your best with your sort of generic knowledge to create this specific task. And of course, that'll get you like 80% of the way there because it's really, really good at what it does. And that's great for an amateur. But of course, that last 20%, that's what separates professional work from amateur work. And if you want that last 20%, it becomes incredibly difficult because you can't really have a conversation with this model. Yes, you can have a conversation in terms of the prompt, and you can tell it didn't do right, and I want you to move the asteroid over here and have it come down here, something like that. But the odds are that you're going to break something else when you try to fix something else. That's what generally happens. That's what I'm calling these nonlinear interdependencies, where you change one thing and all of a sudden other things that you didn't expect to change. So the obvious problem here is that these large language models, they just can't remember anything. And we can talk about full self-driving as well. That's a serious problem for full self-driving. Every time I get in my car and I drive my route to work that I've done hundreds of times, right? I know this route. It's like the car wakes up and it's like, oh, I'm a driver, but I've never been here before. And it's very frustrating because I'm like, I know all the tricks to get there. You don't know them. And every single time we drive, you don't know the tricks to get there, including navigation tricks and things like that. It's very, very frustrating. The solution to full self-driving, and obviously to this generative AI as well, large language models, diffusion models, etc., is to allow them to do local learning. Right now, they can't really do that. If you haven't seen my episode on test time training, you should definitely check that out. I think that is going in the right direction towards this. What they're doing is putting a LoRa or low rank adapter on top of a deep neural network that already exists, but they're throwing it away after every single test example, right? So they train up something to learn how to do a particular problem and then they throw it away. The problem is that throwing it away, and that's what I said in the test time training. What you need instead is, as you're having this conversation, so let's say you're trying to create that perfect asteroid impact, as you're getting generated video from whatever thing it is, whether it's Sora or Kling or whatnot, you get the generated video and you need to be able to then speak to this model and say, hey, this is the kind of stuff you're doing wrong. You can do that in the prompt, but it's a one-shot deal. It's basically you're just telling it and it's brand new. It wakes up in the morning and it's like, oh, here's all this stuff I'm supposed to do. That's not the right way to go, right? If you woke up, it's that 51st dates kind of thing. If you woke up every day and you had to go do your job without remembering what happened previously to you, you would suck at that job. It would be like your first day every day and you would be terrible at it. I mean, one of the things that makes us good at our jobs is that we do it over and over and over again, and we learn all the little tricks and all of that kind of stuff so that we become better over time. That's local learning. That's, me learning how to do something or you learning how to do something. The problem with these large language models is that they can't learn locally. They can only learn generically. They can only learn globally. So until they can learn locally, they're always going to suck at professional work. They basically need to be able to learn on the job. I mean, that's effectively what they need to do. They're already really, really good. They're really good amateurs at a lot of different things right now, but they're not good professionals at anything, at least in my experience. If you have a large language model or generative AI that's giving you professional results that you're not having to complain about, definitely let me know in the comments, because I think that's going to be few and far between that people are going to get that kind of result. If you're trying to do professional work, you need something that comes into the office and remembers what the hell happened yesterday. It can't start every day off as if it's a new worker or a new driver in that area, right? It doesn't matter how good of a driver you are. If you go to a new city, you're not as good of a driver as you are in your local neighborhood because you just know that area so well. Likewise, if you're a good writer, it doesn't make you a good marketing writer. You have to go and work for a company and write specifically marketing material and things like that, or novels, or whatever it is that you want to do. Whatever that thing is that you want to do professionally, you have to remember the stuff that you've learned previously. You have to be able to learn on the job. And And that's where something like, I think this sort of LoRa idea is really interesting, because basically what you want is to be able to keep layering instructions onto this LoRa, keep retraining the LoRa, fine tuning it for very, very specific types of circumstances. For example, my drive to work could have a specific LoRa that's just that. It's like, oh, John just typed in that he wants to go to work in his navigation on his Tesla, and therefore I'm going to load in this LoRa on top of the generic neural network, and it will then, have John drive to work kind of LoRa. And likewise, we could have the learn how to do Armageddon 2 asteroid impact LoRa that learns on the job. So it learns a little bit the first time, then you tell it what it did wrong. And instead of just having to update the prompt, the actual model starts to learn better. It's like, oh, I understand. And I know that LoRa's are used very effectively for still frame images for exactly this purpose, but the problem is they're cumbersome, they're a kludge, they sort of stuck on top of this. This needs to be something that's implemented at the foundation level by these large companies, right? OpenAI or Microsoft or Google or Runway or Kling or these other companies. The company that does this first in each industry is going to have a massive advantage, because what they'll have is they'll have something that's really smart, but it will be able to learn locally and figure out what the individual person wants. And you will get not just a generically good large language model or generative AI model, you'll get a specifically good large language or generative AI model. And my prediction is, until we get to that point, large language models, generative AI, even full self-driving are not going to be ready for prime time. All right, that's my take on things. Let me know in the comments what your take is, especially if you've tried to use generative AI in a professional environment. I would love to know your experience as well. And while you're down there, if you don't mind liking and subscribing, it really helps the channel out. I would love to get to 100,000 subscribers by my birthday in late January, so thank you so much. And finally, a big thanks to Factor for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to click my link in the description to get 50% off plus free shipping on your first box, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.